Yo, what's good, guys? We're back at it again with another MLB The Show video for you guys. And today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys some of my preferred slash favorite lineups that I would be running with this last week of ranked remaining. Ideally, we got this video out a little earlier, but I didn't have all the cards. Just fell behind with all the sickness and whatnot. Don't want to get too deep into it. But we're good now. We're caught up now. I want to make the video. Got just about a week for these lineups. Chronologically, this probably should be a pitchers tier list video, but I feel like a lot of people kind of already have their pitchers. Plus, I'll just show off some rotations in here. I'll probably still upload that video for those of you who enjoy the tier list more. But we're going to do this. We'll do pitchers, and then we'll probably do wild cards headed in the next season. I believe there's only going to be 3 slots instead of 4. So it's going to be a little more important about where you put your wild cards next season. So let's go ahead and hop in. First lineup I'm going to show off is a hybrid of the Max Muncy season award / Tops Now captain and this other captain. Where's he at? Joe Nathan, who's a Texas captain, came out in that last 95 overall captain pack we got not too long ago. So the dope thing about this is you get 2 wildcard spots in the outfield. Can really be whoever you want, but you're probably going to want to make them season awards players. So you got Mookie here, who is getting, I believe we have the tier 2. So that would be 8 power right, 5 batting clutch. And then if he was a pitcher, he'd be getting helped out a little bit. I think we have a couple Tops Now pitchers. So that's dope. Mookie's already max clutch, but the power obviously helps. Britton Doyle looks very good with this boost as well. You can make the argument that maybe on Hall of Fame, the Corbin Carroll boost would be better, but we'll get to that soon enough. And then in right field, Ketel Marte, y'all know him, y'all love him. Kind of shores up kind of a gap in his skill set with the power right getting a little better, gets over 100. You hit a perfect, it should go. And then first base, I have Babe, but if you like Ernie over there, or if you like Frank Thomas or anybody else, you got Vlad, who does qualify for this team. But in my opinion, Babe's still probably the best first baseman, so put him by default there. Second base, we got this Lindor. Him getting some power is very nice. Him getting some clutch is very nice. And then over here at shortstop, we have our first player that is benefiting from the Texas team. So I think the Texas captain is probably one of the most underrated ones in the game. Joe Nathan's not a bad reliever. He's not dominant. He's not great, but he's not bad, especially with the state of the bullpen that we have right now. And then you look at this wheel, and it turns Ernie Banks into a demigod. All he's really missing is he's not blazing fast, and he doesn't have max out power lefty, but then you're going to have the handedness advantage anyway. So for my money, this is the best shortstop in the game. He looks very comparable to Babe Ruth. Trades a little bit of bat for good defense at a premium position. Ernie is the real deal. Go grind your team affinities. He's definitely worth it. Moving into next season, we'll save you a wild card spot. Third base is Chipper Jones by default. I'm not sure if there's Devers. If you really like him, you can run him. The contact left still isn't going to be great. This Burger's kind of sneaky. Has really nice clutch, so it kind of saves them a little bit, but the contact's still kind of low. And then I assume everybody, for the most part, has Adrian Beltre, so that's another cool option there. DH, I think you got 2 options, really. You got Babe and Jordan. They're both very solid. I like to play Babe at first and have Jordan here. But you got other very solid options, like Jackson Holliday makes a Texas team if you want to. He's not really DH material, in my opinion. But you could go like Giancarlo, you could go maybe this Justin Turner, Devers again, Vlad again. This Rooker, if you're not on like Legend, would be an absolute dog. Gary Sanchez wouldn't be too bad. There's basically endless options here, but my pick would probably be Jordan. Moving on to the bench, this is kind of an important part of this specific team build. You're going to find yourself kind of needing Tops Now or season award cards are also from Texas. So we're double dipping here. These 4 bench slots, because Muncy's actually also from Texas, are all contributing to the Joe Nathan boost. They're also all contributing to the season awards boost. So this is a really good one to stack together. Most other teams you can't really stack that much. Moving on to the rotation here, I opted for Skeens, Gibson, Holiday, Santana, and then Andy Cooper's cool because he is from Texas. Plus, I think he's usable. I'm not gonna sit here and glorify him and say he's great, but he is decent enough. He's like a lot of the other Negro League guys where he just throws a lot of junk. If you want to forego that boost, you can run Chris Sale. Greg Maddux is also from Texas, so if you're on Hall of Fame Plus, he's definitely a serviceable option. Herman Marquez, if you want to keep that. I don't believe there's any tops now pitchers that are from Texas, but this Hagen Smith's a very good option. If you enjoyed him a little earlier in the season, he can definitely sub in. There's some pretty solid options to round out the rotation there. And then bullpen, best available. I went this Robert Suarez. If you wanted to wild card the other one, you'd have an argument. Tanner Scott, Brawley Fingers, Lou Trevino, I prefer over Mo. If you like Mo more, I would probably slot him in there. Our captain, Joe Nathan, who looks very good. The pitching clutch isn't great, and the pitching repertoire is not the best, but he's definitely serviceable. Matt Strom, probably my pick for the best lefty at the moment. Devin Williams, we used a wild card slot on. If you have somebody that you feel comfortable with, or if you don't want to burn a wild card slot on a bullpen arm, then I get that. You could definitely do it on a starter or even a different position player. David Fry, forgot to go over him. Look at him. He's an absolute monster. But again, if you want to forego that boost, or if you want to throw in some more Texas players, you could always wild card that Adley or that Posada will probably be just as good, if not better, for most people. And then Ben Joyce, top snow card, not from Texas, unfortunately, but looks like an absolute stud. Four seam, sinker, slider, circle. If you enjoyed that, like Edwin Diaz card earlier in the year, he's very similar, except he has a fourth pitch. So absolute stud there. Moving on, we have our Corbin Carroll team. I promised we would get here. If you're on Legend, you're probably running some team that kind of looks like this. You can see I have an unused wildcard slot, so anywhere that you don't feel comfortable, you can throw them in. We got Trout in left there. We got Brenton Doyle in center field. Jaron Duran in right field. Probably the best defensive outfield you can have, other than maybe throwing like Tim Raines in left or something like that. Ernie back at first now instead of shortstop. Still collecting the Texas boost. Another beneficiary of the Texas boost here in Trevor Story. Look at that wheel. If you typically enjoy Trevor Story cards, this card's an absolute stud here. Only 30,000 stubs as well. Jimmy Rollins, who I wildcarded, but if you don't want to do that, you can always go for like Jeter, Rich Arulia, really good options. Lindor won't be quite as good on this team as the other, but still very solid. Trey Turner would collect a little bit. Ellie De La Cruz would benefit a little bit there. Chipper Jones at third, nobody better. It's not even debatable there. DH, same situation, anybody you want. And then bench here, we have Corbin Carroll. We have Theo Gillen, I believe is how you pronounce it. He is from Texas, and he is above 84 speed, so he makes the Corbin Carroll team. Mason Wynn, also on this team, so this card's very valuable here, only like 7,000 stubs. And then Jackson Holiday. If you want to throw Jackson Holiday in the starting lineup anywhere, you can also do that. Starting pitchers, nothing really different. Just threw more of the Texas guys in here because you can't work as many in the lineup with this team. And then bullpen-wise, we have Bard and TJ Antone. Not ideal. Bard definitely can give you some good innings. Antone, probably stay away from. More of a roster filler. Kind of how Ottavino worked with the switch hitting team for a while. But definitely another very solid roster option. You're getting more or less higher contacts across the board with this team. So this is more of like a Legend, or if you struggle on Hall of Fame type of team, as opposed to the Texas team. Our third, we all know it. We know it a little too well, probably. It is the Santana team. So I got my guy Winseel in left. Absolute stud. One of the better swings of the year so far for me. Has very, very good contact. The main downside with the Santana team is they nerfed it, so you're losing a little bit of contact, not a noticeable amount, but you are gaining no more batting clutch. So it kind of rules out cards like Yasmani Grandal, right? On paper, that's a great catcher for this team. In reality, in practicum, whatever you want to say, not so much. So Tim Raines in center, don't love it, but with the quirks, with the swing, with the switch hitting, he will be good enough there. Right field, we got Bernie Williams. I guess if you want to burn a wild card spot, you could do like Nico Goodrum in center field again. But again, his clutch is kind of low. He's not going to benefit from it. Chipper becomes basically perfect. Whatever he was missing before, nothing really. He doesn't benefit at all, actually. But it is nice to see him. Obviously, he is a staple in all of these teams. Shortstop Lindor, so you're looking at slightly better contacts on this team as opposed to the Texas and Season Awards team that we were running, but you lose a little bit of that pop. Same thing for Ketel Marte. You're looking at like 10 more contact than he had on the other team, but you are losing a little pop, and you're also not benefiting from clutch. Santana is Santana. It's more so about the swing with him. Posada, you know, you also have the Adley Rutschman if you want. And then my personal pick for DH for this team would be this Jose Ramirez. I think he has the best swing in the game. He's an absolute stud. And when he gets a 99 overall, that's probably going to be the best card in the game, in my opinion. Bench-wise, just regular switch hitters. There's really no, like, Texas guys or anything. I don't think I have, I don't have the Texas captain on. It is here, but he's not on. So put Durangelo in the rotation. You probably want to avoid him, pitch around him, maybe work with like 4 guys or even swap him on when it would be his start. Throw somebody else in there. And then I have Ottavino here. I believe there are a couple other switch pitchers you could do. Kenley Jansen, if you wanted to maybe go back and wild card one of his cards. He hasn't had the best. This Estrada dude got a pretty good card at the end of last season, but you'd have to wild card it. And then other than that, you are just setting bullpen spots on fire. So I'd probably steer clear of that. And moving on, we have our final team already. 30 for 30 team. This one's more limited. I think it's a fun team to run. You can see it still has a wild card spot available. You know, do whatever you will with that. If you want to put it at pitcher, if you want to put it in the bullpen, you could certainly do that. I think really what this team is missing is a catcher. I don't know if any catcher's ever done 30 for 30. But also no Acuna. I would feel a little more confident with this roster if there was an Acuna, but we move. So Trout honestly probably looks the best on this team. 125 clutch, 111 contact right, 115 left with very good power around the board. Doesn't help his reaction out like the Carroll team does, but you probably won't notice it anyway. Looks like an absolute stud. Willie Mays in center field. Some people are going to cringe at that. Some people are going to really enjoy that. Me personally, I'm somewhere in the middle. You don't have a ton of other options. You do have J-Rod if you want. If you're a psychopath and want to run one of these Acunas, you could do that. But that is about it for your options in the outfield. It's pretty limited. You're going to have to wild card this Larry Walker as well. So it's not ideal. This is more of a cookie cutter team where if you enjoyed a lot of the players on this team, you may get some use out of this captain. First base, I threw Ernie here. No real reason. We only have one lefty in the lineup. If you wanted to do Babe Ruth, you could certainly do that. If you wanted to do a switch hitter here, you could definitely do that. Lindor is absolutely gross on this team. This is probably his best team. 118, 125, 121, 104, 125. Almost a perfect hitter out of a Lindor card. Absolutely insane. Mookie Betts looks very, very good on this team. Max clutch, max contact. You are always going to have the biggest PCI possible. Also has some very good quirks, so that might also help with PCI sizes. And then 111 power right, 93 power left. Looks like an absolute stud. We know how good this Mookie card is. He gets even better on this team. Ryan Braun, this one's divisive for me. I do not enjoy his swing whatsoever, but you can't deny the stats here. 123, 124, 125. That's pre-parallels. You get 2 on him. He's a maxed out contact guy, just like Mookie. 93 power right, maxed out against lefties. Good vision, helps your timing windows a little bit, and not a terrible fielder at third base. You put a couple, like I said, 2 parallels on him. He's a gold fielder at third base. You know, he'll probably play a better third than like Chipper Jones will, for instance. DH went Jose Ramirez again. Probably his best team. Card looks insane. 116, 113, 118, 123 against both. Best swing in the game. Switch hitter. Enough said. Catcher, I went Gary. There's a million different options for this. None that make the team. But if you like Mauer, you could run Mauer. If you enjoy Delgado and his secondary, you could do that. If you like Gibson, if you want to use a wild card slot here and just throw Jorge Posada on this team as well, you could definitely do that. Bench-wise, we have Cedric Mullins, Grady, Bobby Witt, Christian Yelich. So if you wanted to work in a Witt card, I think he's the only one here that has a phenomenal card to work in. You could definitely get that Witt card in. You'd probably want to play him at third or DH though, because his fielding's pretty bad. Pitcher, you can cheat a little bit with Shohei. If you don't prefer J-Ram, you could DH the collection Shohei, and that would certainly work. But for me personally, I'm going to stick it out with J-Ram. And then bullpen, just best available, whatever you prefer here. Again, we have a wild card slot, so you can really go anybody you want. If you enjoyed Trinan, you could do him. Devin Williams is my pick, probably the best reliever in the game. Aaron Loop, if you need a lefty. Hobie Milner, if you want kind of a funky lefty reliever. And then, you know, Kenta Maeda, if you want a long reliever. There's a million different options here. Aaron Bummer, if you just want to go old-fashioned there. Ottavino, if you really enjoyed that card. There's a million of options. Where I would probably use this is in the starting rotation. I'd probably throw in, I don't even know, just somebody you're comfortable with. Depends on the difficulty that you're on. And yeah, guys, that is my favorite teams. There's definitely an argument to be made that you could just go best available at every position. For sake of argument, I will, you know, go ahead and show you that and kind of mess up my captain glitches. Or I guess I don't have to. We can just leave them on the bench. So left field, you're probably still looking at either Trout or like Brenton Doyle. Doyle's probably the best on paper. Left, you're probably going like Griffey. Third, obviously Chipper Jones. Shortstop, I would probably stick with wildcarding Mookie. If you want to stay in season, you're probably more so looking at like Holiday, Richard Rulia, Ripken, Jeter, Tyler Fitzgerald, somebody like that. Second base, my pick would probably be Lindor. If not, you could wildcard. Tel Marte would probably be the next one off the top of my head. Eduardo Escobar would also not be too bad. Jake Berger here also in his secondary wouldn't be terrible. Tim Raines, if you want like a speed contact option. First base, this is either Babe Ruth or Ernie Banks. It's up to you. Kind of depends on how many lefties you have in the lineup, in my opinion. If you have a lot, probably go Ernie. If you don't have a ton, Babe, can't go wrong with. Catcher, this is probably, if you don't have a ton of lefties, could go Joe Mauer. For me personally, I would probably use a wild card spot here on Jorge Posada. I think he's better value. I think that Rutschman's like $500K now. I think Posada's probably got the better swing anyway. Right field, you got Stanton. Again, you got Soto if you don't have too many lefties. Overall, I would be fine with either of those. I'd be fine with Aaron Judge. But Jarren Duran is going to give you the best defense out of those. Probably swap those just so we get the higher reaction in center field. And then that would be best lineup available. The starters aren't really benefiting from any boost or anything. The bullpen, basically, those are the highest overalls at every position, other than Lou Trevino probably. And yeah, that would be your best lineup. So across the board, Griffey's probably got lower contact than a lot of the theme teams would, captains, whatever you want to call it. Duran, probably slightly lower contact than the theme teams, but relatively still good. Doyle was on like two of those teams I showed, so it doesn't hurt to run those teams. It's only going to help you, especially like the Corbin Carroll team, to get his reaction up, especially if you're playing him in a secondary. Ernie, I mean, he's not missing a ton here, but I believe he's missing some reaction, some fielding, and he's missing a good amount of contact right, which would help in those righty-righty situations, especially on higher difficulties. Lindor, missing some contact left, missing some power right compared to on some other teams. Mookie, missing a little bit of contact, doesn't really matter too much for him. Chipper, not really missing anything. J-Ram is significantly worse here, and that is with him benefiting from the tier 1 of the Cedric Mullins. If I took that off, he would be even worse. You would definitely be looking at basically not having to run, but probably running like Yordan Alvarez. And then, yeah, so across the board, the contacts are lower. Certain captains also give you more power. It doesn't hurt to run them. I would say everybody should be running them, especially with the captain glitch. If you don't know how to do it, link will be in the description. I made a video on it already. But overall, closing thoughts, closing statements here. I think this Texas team is what I will personally be running through All-Star and Hall of Fame for the rest of this season. But if I do touch Legend, I may opt to go to the Carroll team. It's really just a personal preference thing. Both of these teams are good enough to play on Legend. Obviously, they're some of the best cards in the game. Santana, I'd probably steer clear of unless you're somebody that really, really crutches switch hitters. A lot of these guys, clutch isn't necessarily as high as you probably want, but it's definitely still doable. It's just not quite the Santana team from last season. Still incredibly good, and you can't really put a value on having a switch hitter at every spot in the lineup. It's very frustrating for your opponents to go against, and it makes the game a whole lot easier. And then this 30 for 30 team, which I've overridden with the best lineup, is a fun team to use. But yeah, guys, that is it. Those are the lineups that I think you guys should be considering. They're rather straightforward. We have about 8 days left, so if you haven't already grinded a lot of these cards, there's a little bit of time for you to grind them and use them. If not, don't trip. They will be wild cardable next season. Till next time.